My name is Martin Blake. I'm 51 years old, and for the past 12 years, I've worked at Nexora Systems. I've spent over a decade managing our largest corporate clients, building deep, trusted partnerships that brought in the kind of stable revenue investors dream of. Nexora, based in Seattle, transformed from a small startup to a recognized player in enterprise software. And I had a front-row seat through all of it. It's Tuesday, and for the first time in my life, I didn't want a meeting to end. Because I knew the moment I walked out of that room, nothing would ever be the same again. The atmosphere in the conference room was heavy, though you'd never know it by looking. Our CEO, Connor Fields, wore his usual polished smile. Sitting beside him was Lena Crowley, our VP of Investor Relations, equally composed. Smiles all around, and that's when you know you should worry. When people say, "There's nothing to worry about," while smiling like a hostage. They didn't look me in the eye as they spoke. "Martin, we wanted to bring you in to discuss our new organizational structure," Connor began, tone casual, like he was commenting on the weather. "We're aiming for a more dynamic, forward-looking approach in our sales division." Lena jumped in. "We value your experience deeply, and that's exactly why we'd love for you to mentor our new Director of Client Engagement, Maxine. You'd shift into a strategic advisory role, helping guide the next phase." Maxine, 28. Harvard graduate, Nexora's rising star who made more Instagram posts about the company in 1 month than I had emails in 3 years. She was the shiny new thing. She'd landed 3 small accounts in her first 60 days, none of which had renewed. But marketing loved her. The board loved her. I said nothing. Connor kept going. "This isn't a demotion, Martin. It's a transition. Less travel, more balance. You've earned it." What he didn't say was what I already knew. My client relationships were being handed off. My role was being sunset without the courtesy of calling it what it was. Their voices faded in my ears as my own thoughts took over. 12 years, countless 4 a.m. flights, video calls on Christmas Eve, missed birthdays, sacrificed weekends. All of it, swept aside for someone who didn't even know how to pronounce half our legacy clients' names. Still, I nodded. "Of course, whatever's best for the company," I said. I smiled. They seemed relieved. Back in my office, I stood at the window and looked out over Seattle. 15th floor, view of the Space Needle. On my desk was a framed photo, my daughter Claire's college graduation. I'd flown in from Chicago that morning, went straight from the airport to the ceremony, still in a blazer. And now, all of that was being reduced to a bullet point on someone's restructuring plan. I saw it clearly for the first time. This wasn't about a new direction. This was about clearing the path. But not with a layoff. No lawsuits, no HR battles. Just a quiet fade-out. Polite, professional, lethal. Before I left that day, I packed up a few things from my desk. Nothing dramatic, just my personal coffee mug, a notepad my daughter had doodled on years ago, and a USB drive I always kept disconnected. That drive held notes, drafts, client insights. Nothing proprietary, but everything essential. As I pulled out of the parking garage, I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. That office, that title, that desk. It had never really been mine. Just part of a display I'd been asked to curate. But the value, the relationships, the trust, that had always lived with me. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I turned my phone to silent, ignored the Slack pings, let the just checking in emails rot in my inbox. I made coffee and sat in the backyard with Claire's old drawing in my hands. A child's messy scrawl, best dad, best boss, best friend. I smiled. For the first time in years, I remembered who I was working for. Later, I opened my laptop and created a new folder. Phase 1, Recall. Inside it, I typed a single line. Client loyalty is never to the company. It's to the person who showed up when it mattered. The system doesn't understand that. I do. And then I drafted my first message. The next morning, I switched my phone to airplane mode. I didn't want to see anything from Nexora. No Slack messages, no politely distant emails from Lena, no meeting invites masked as check-ins. I wasn't just unplugging. I was shifting, quietly, deliberately. This wasn't a break, it was a beginning. I stepped into my home office and opened my laptop. 12 years of contacts were stored in my personal directory. On my private phone, 314 names. Every one of them, someone I'd worked with directly: CEOs, COOs, procurement heads, consultants. Each name had a backstory, a dinner, a solved problem, a midnight call that built something deeper than a business transaction. I thought of Rachel Lynn first, director of procurement at a massive retail chain based in Washington. We'd lost her account a few years back, but she still texted me every year on my birthday. I called. "Martin," she answered, sounding cheerful but cautious. "Didn't expect to hear from you." "Rachel, I'm no longer with Nexora," I said calmly. "What? When?" "As of last week, they're restructuring." A pause. Then, "I'll be honest. We were already on the fence with Nexora, but we stuck around because we trusted you. Now, I guess it's time to reconsider." I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. The decision was already forming in her head. "Do you have a plan?" she asked. "It's coming together," I said. Rachel was just the first. Over the next few days, the calls kept coming. Quiet, purposeful conversations. Not a single pitch. No "come with me," just clarity. And everyone understood. No one panicked, but no one wanted to be the last one holding a contract with a company that had just cut loose the person they actually trusted. In business, you don't always need to sell. Sometimes you just need to leave the silence long enough for someone else to speak first. Each morning, I followed the same ritual. Brewed my coffee, sat at my desk, reviewed years of notes, flags I'd raised that were ignored, client requests that were dismissed, solutions I'd drafted that never made it past the politics. All of it had value, and now it was mine. I opened a second folder, Phase 2, Positioning. I typed, "They still don't understand what their clients value." But I do. That weekend, the first official Nexora announcement hit my inbox. Subject line: Leadership Transitions in Client Strategy. The body was everything I expected. Maxine's new title, her vision for the future, some vague quote about modernizing engagement. My name was nowhere. No farewell, no thanks. 12 years, and I was already being erased. And yet, I didn't feel insulted. That omission said it all. They wanted me forgotten quickly, which meant I was still a threat. Monday morning, I met Rachel and her CFO for breakfast downtown. Our meeting lasted 18 minutes. "We need someone who understands our decision-making process," Rachel said. "There are a lot of software companies. But we trusted you. That made the difference." "I'm just reviewing old notes right now," I replied carefully. "Well," her CFO said, "those notes are all we need." I smiled quietly. That afternoon, 2 more calls came in. Mark Allen and Kaylee Soto, longtime clients I'd managed for years. Maxine had reached out to them. They hadn't responded. "We only want to talk to you," Mark said. I didn't rush anything. No grand overtures, no drama. This wasn't a revolution. It was a tide, quiet, steady, inevitable. That night, Julia sent me a screenshot from an internal Slack thread at Nexora. "Brian, none of Martin's clients have responded to Maxine." "Lena, maybe it's early." "Connor, don't overreact. The restructure needs time." Even their own leadership was questioning the strategy. I didn't need to push. I just needed to stay still. I closed my laptop and opened a new folder. Phase 3, Transfer. I typed. "The first wave has landed. The second is on its way." You can't stop a tide by ignoring it. You can only drown in it. It was Monday morning. I stood by the window in my home office, coffee in hand, staring at Seattle's grey sky. One thought kept echoing. What am I waiting for? The answer was simple: timing. In any campaign, it's not just about having the weapons. It's about knowing when to strike. And now, the environment was ripening. I didn't need to create chaos inside Nexora. Brian and Connor were doing that all on their own. That morning, my phone rang. The number was familiar. James Berman, CTO of a major construction management firm in California. I'd managed their infrastructure migration 3 years ago. We hadn't spoken in a while, but the trust had never eroded. "Martin, I'm hearing things," he said. "Is it true? You're no longer at Nexora?" "Yeah," I replied. "As of last week." "Well," he sighed, "we had a meeting this morning. Another provider pitched us and dropped your name as a reference. Our board shut it down, said if you're not involved, we're not interested. I didn't say anything. What are your plans? He asked. They're taking shape, I said. Good, let us know. We'll follow. That day I received 3 more calls just like it. No persuasion required. They weren't interested in staying with Nexora. They were waiting to see where I landed. And that's when I saw it clearly. This wasn't about poaching. This was about returning what had never belonged to Nexora in the first place. Later that afternoon, Julia messaged me again. Brian flipped out during this morning's leadership sync. Maxine missed the Travis Global call. Deal fell through. Connor just sat there, didn't say a word. Travis Global had been worth nearly $900,000 annually. The deal collapsing wasn't a hiccup, it was a beginning. That night, I finally started filling my Phase 3 transfer folder. These clients weren't legally mine, but every proposal, every idea, every line of trust, they all had my name on them. Emails, strategy documents, handwritten notes from weekend calls. Relationships built over years. Nexora never owned those. They were on loan, and the lease was up. 2 days later, I was in a quiet law office in downtown Seattle. Across from me sat Cliff Andrews, a contract lawyer and the cousin of one of my former clients. He reviewed my NDA, my exit package, and shook his head. You're clean, he said, no legal restrictions. But if you succeed, they'll try to scare your clients. I'm not stealing anything, I told him. No, he said, but they'll accuse you of it anyway. Be ready. Later that week, I received the same message from Rachel, Mark, and Kaylee. We've set up the framework to transfer our accounts. Will you guide the transition? What mattered most was one subtle phrase. Our accounts with you, not with Nexora, not the system, with me. The line between what a company owns and what a relationship represents had never been clearer. That weekend, I met with Gloria Reynolds, CEO of a mid-sized consultancy firm named Altiron. We sat in a minimalist conference room, sipping black coffee. Nexora's in freefall, she said plainly. But the buzz around you, that's something we can't ignore. What are you offering? I asked. Not a job, she said. A platform, full control. Your own clients, your own team, your own rules. You call the shots. I sipped my coffee slowly. How much autonomy are we talking? All of it, she said, and if it works, a path to equity. I left the building feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Respect. Not for what I'd done, but for what I could still build. That night, while I was cooking dinner, Claire looked up from her homework. You seem happier, she said. For the first time, I replied, I'm going to work for myself. She smiled. Took you long enough. By Friday, Rachel, James, and Kaylee had all formally terminated their contracts with Nexora. Total revenue loss for Nexora, $3.1 million. Julia messaged me again. Connor couldn't handle the investor briefing. Brian's been fired. Maxine reassigned. Total panic. I turned off my phone. I no longer needed to watch. It was time to move. I opened a new folder. Phase 4, Establishment. And I typed, this is just the beginning. My new office wasn't quite finished yet, but Altiron gave me a small corner space to get started. No windows, a creaky chair, a blank white wall. But for the first time in years, every sound in the room belonged to me. Every decision echoed back with purpose. The nameplate on the desk didn't say VP, it didn't have to. This time, I wasn't stepping into someone else's system. I was designing my own. My first move was assembling a team. I thought of 3 former Nexora colleagues, people who'd quietly kept the machine running while getting none of the credit. Damon, Erica, and Luis. All 3 were brilliant, dependable, and knew the inner workings of our systems better than anyone. It only took a few messages to reach them. This is temporary, I told each of them, but we can build something different this time, something we own. Erica responded immediately, I'm in. Luis was more cautious. Nexora's offers are getting weaker. If your offer is solid, I'm ready. Damon replied with one sentence, You're the guy I'd follow into battle. I'm ready. I met with them one-on-one. My proposal was simple, no salaries, profit sharing. If we succeed, we all rise. If we fall together. They didn't hesitate. Next, I sketched our new service model, radically different from Nexora's rigid corporate maze. No ticket queues, no robotic support windows, just direct, responsive human service. With Erica and Damon, I stayed up late mapping the structure. 48-hour guaranteed resolution, direct engineer access, no middlemen, transparent metrics, mutual performance reviews, fixed annual pricing, no surprise invoices. These are bold promises, Erica warned. They're real promises, I said, because this time no one's cutting corners for margin. Midweek, Rachel Lynn and her CFO stopped by the new office. We had no signage yet, but we had coffee and conviction. The meeting was brief. "We trust you," Rachel said, "but our investors want to know why we're following you." I nodded. "In 3 months, I'll show a 20% performance improvement across every key metric you had with Nexora." Not a promise. A guarantee. The CFO raised an eyebrow. "Can you write that down?" "You'll have it on paper tomorrow," I said. Later that day, I received an email from Altiron. Confidential memo, Nexora acquisition process. Halted inside was a PDF report. Veritas Capital had withdrawn. Reasons: unexplained client churn. Staff turnover, negative industry sentiment. One paragraph stopped me cold. Post-Martin Blake departure, Nexora suffered trust loss with its core clients. New relationship channels underperformed. Reputation damage now considered material. They didn't just lose me. They lost the value I carried. The next morning, Howard Densmore, CEO of Travis Global, called me. "Nexora's crawling back," he said, "offered us a 2-year contract at a 12% discount." "And?" I asked. "I told them we'd think about it." "But really, I just wanted to hear your voice." "Where are you now?" "With Altiron for now," I said, "but we're building something new, independent, scalable." "You're the decision maker?" he asked. "I'm the founder." Howard laughed. "Send us the paperwork. We're moving." That evening, Claire came into the kitchen holding an old photo album. "Look what I found," she said. Inside was a photo of me on my first day at Nexora. Yellow walls, cheap blinds, holding a mug and smiling like a man still naive enough to think loyalty was a two-way street. "Crazy how much you've changed," she said. "I haven't changed," I replied. "Back then, I thought I was building something that mattered. Now I am." By the end of the week, another client followed Howard's lead. Then another. Total value of contracts transferred to me, $4.7 million, and the offers kept coming. Then Gloria showed up at my temporary office. She handed me a slim folder. Inside was a proposal. "If you choose to spin off from Altiron and form your own firm, we will support you with a 20% equity investment, advisory partnership, and operational support. You choose the name. You run the company." I placed the folder gently on the desk and smiled. "I've spent enough time in other people's shadows," I told her. "It's time I carried my own light." That night, I created a new folder, Phase 5, Origin, and I typed, "The name will be mine. And this time, I write the rules." It took me 3 days to settle on a name for the company. I didn't want something trendy or forgettable. It had to carry weight. A name that would still hold value 10 years from now. I chose Luminaris Partners. It meant light-bringing partnerships. This wasn't about branding, it was about ownership. The split from Altiron was clean and respectful. Gloria issued a public statement. Under Martin Blake's leadership, Luminaris Partners will redefine client relationship management in enterprise services. As an early investor and strategic advisor, Altiron fully supports this independent venture. For the first time, I wasn't someone else's asset. I was my own foundation. Within the first week, I established our framework. A lean core team with profit-sharing agreements. 5 active clients with year-long contracts. A hybrid, low-overhead operating model. A trust-centered service experience that scaled with people, not process. Luis ran ops. Erica led client engagement. Damon handled integration. We didn't need onboarding manuals. We'd all written them before. But this time we weren't cogs. We were builders. Midweek, my daughter Claire came by the office. I showed her the new logo, clean, white type over a soft beam of light. "Very you," she said. "In a good way?" I asked. "For someone who spent years in someone else's shadow?" She grinned. It's perfect. Later that afternoon, Julia messaged me again. Connor's unraveling. The board is demanding answers. They're blaming the loss of major clients on structural misjudgments. Veritas is completely out. At the bottom of the message was a screenshot of an internal note. Losing Martin Blake wasn't just a personnel change, it triggered cultural collapse. We didn't calculate that risk. I smiled. They were finally doing the math. In our third week, trade blogs picked up the story. The Great Exodus, why enterprise clients are flocking to Luminaris. And for the first time, my name was in the headline. Martin Blake, the man whose exit broke a system. But that wasn't what moved me. It was a letter from Rachel Lynn's company. We've worked with Martin for 6 years. The logo on the invoice changed. The trust never did. I had it framed. No plaque or bonus ever meant more. By the end of the month, Luminaris had 11 active clients and projected $6 million in annual revenue. And then I received a LinkedIn message. From Connor Fields. Martin, I've been following your progress. There's no ill will. We'd like to discuss a possible transition package. If there's a way for you to consult, we're open to generous terms. I didn't reply. That door had closed. I wasn't interested in helping them recover what they had willingly destroyed. That week, the procurement head at Travis Global called. Nexora offered us a desperate rate cut, he said. 50% off, 2-year deal. What did you say? I asked. We said no. We're not leaving because of price. We're leaving because we know the difference between value and a discount. That landed hard. Most companies don't know why they lose clients. They think it's money. It's not. It's disconnection. That night, I had dinner with Rebecca and Claire. For once, I wasn't distracted. No late-night flights, no urgent emails. Rebecca smiled across the table. You're different now, quieter, happier. I built a system that I don't want to run from, I said. Claire added, you're not managing people, you're leading them. And that's when I realized this wasn't revenge, it was recovery. Later that evening, I opened a new folder, Phase 6, Legacy, and I typed, revenge isn't a feeling anymore. It's a system, and this one is mine. 1 month after launching Luminaris Partners, I received an invitation to speak at the Northwest Enterprise Solutions Conference in downtown Seattle. The panel title was almost too fitting, Relationship-Based Sales, Strategies for Retention in a Changing Market. Nexora was also on the agenda. Connor Fields was scheduled to speak on Maintaining Corporate Loyalty During Disruption. I didn't smile. It wasn't funny. It was poetic. I arrived at the venue early. In the lobby, I ran into Howard Densmore from Travis Global. He greeted me with a handshake and a smirk. Saw who's speaking right before you, he said. Thought about sticking around. Could be entertaining. I chuckled. Try not to laugh out loud. When I stepped on stage, I wasn't nervous. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even eager to impress. I was ready to teach. Client loyalty is not earned through contracts or pricing tiers, I began. It's built through moments. Crisis calls answered at midnight, unbilled favors, proactive insight before problems arise. You can't systematize that. You can only live it. When companies treat relationship managers like disposable assets, they're telling clients that trust is optional. That message has consequences. I glanced toward the back of the room. Connor Fields sat between 2 board members. His face was still, but his hands, white-knuckled and clenched, told the real story. I continued, the myth is that clients are loyal to logos. But they're loyal to people. Strip that away, and they won't fight you. They'll just leave. I wrapped up without naming names, without pointing fingers, just data, just truth, and the room applauded, not out of politeness, but recognition. After the panel, 3 former Nexora clients approached me. By the end of the day, we'd signed 2 new letters of intent. Total projected value, $2.2 million. That evening, back at the hotel, I received a LinkedIn message from Maxine Riley. Hi Martin, I hope you're well. I've been let go from Nexora. The leadership is in flux, and I realize now that the role I was placed in was never mine to begin with. I've always respected your approach. If Luminaris is hiring, I'd love the chance to learn the right way. I stared at the screen. I thought about the girl they had used as a shield. A bright talent, poorly led. She wasn't the villain. She was collateral. I forwarded her message to Erica and Luis. Attached a note, potential, let's talk to her. The next morning, Julia texted, Connor resigned. Interim CEO appointed. Board says Nexora will restructure and explore merger options. Stock down 18% in 3 weeks. Veritas is out for good. It was over. Not with a bang. With surrender. That night, Claire asked what I was reading. I showed her Luminaris's first quarter performance report. $8.4 million in new business, I said. 12 clients, 4 new hires. 1 completely independent firm. She grinned. You look lighter. I am, I said, not because of what we've built, but because of what I finally let go. Before going to bed, I opened my final folder. Phase 7, closure. I added a single line, revenge isn't the end, it's the lesson. Only those willing to learn survive it. Exactly 1 year after the launch of Luminaris Partners, I stood in our new 21st floor office in downtown Seattle. The morning sun cut across the skyline, and below me, Nexora's old building now bore the logo of another company. Nothing remained of them, no signage, no presence. But I remembered. Every day I passed by, I remembered. Today was different. Today it was official. I was no longer just the founder. I was a full equity partner in the fastest growing firm in our sector. Our leadership team gathered in the main conference room. Erica, Luis, Damon, Julia, and yes, even Maxine, who had joined Luminaris 3 months earlier. She had grown, humbled by experience, focused now on learning, not replacing. She had stopped trying to lead like Martin and started just listening. And it showed. As we wrapped up our quarterly review, I stood at the head of the table. 1 year ago, this was just a PDF and a pitch deck. Now it's a company with 12 full-time employees, a client portfolio of $20 million, and a reputation for doing things differently. Erica raised her hand. So what's next? I smiled. Now we stop being the alternative. Now we become the example. Later that afternoon, I received a courier envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. From Connor Fields. Martin, you were right. I valued transactions over relationships. It cost me everything. If you're ever willing to grab coffee, I'd like to apologize in person. Connor, I folded the note, slipped it into my drawer, maybe one day, but not today. That night, Rebecca and I attended Liam's school band performance. The last time I'd tried to attend, I was called away for an urgent client issue. That client no longer existed. This time, I sat through the whole show, front row. On the way out, Rebecca looked at me. I haven't seen you this calm in years. That's what happens when you finally build something you don't have to defend every day, I said. The next morning, I took a detour and drove past Nexora's former headquarters. The sign was being removed. They were downsizing, according to the Business Journal, moving to a smaller office in the suburbs. I didn't stop, didn't take a picture, didn't feel anything. That chapter had already closed. Back at the office, I signed the final documents, the ones that made my partnership permanent. Luminaris had grown 34% in its first year. My personal portfolio represented nearly $20 million in revenue. I closed the manila folder and looked out at the same skyline. Same buildings, same city, but everything else had changed. Rebecca walked in with 2 coffees. Signed and sealed? She asked. I nodded. Signed and sealed. She sat across from me, searching my face. You don't look as happy as I expected. I'm not thinking about Nexora, I said. I'm thinking about what we're building here and how to do it right this time. That morning, I approved 3 new hires, all with the same profit-sharing model I'd negotiated for myself. No one at Luminaris would ever build something only to have it stolen. That was my first act as a partner. Later that day, a text came in from Travis Hriss. Heard about the partnership. Congratulations. Knew you'd land on your feet. I replied, thanks to clients like you. He responded, no. Thanks to you being who you are. We just followed the value. After the call, I picked up the framed quote Rebecca had given me last Christmas. A simple piece of parchment that read, "The best revenge is massive success." I smiled, then I turned it face down. That story was over. I opened my calendar and scheduled coffee with Connor. Not to gloat, not to relive the past, but because sometimes the final step in moving forward is releasing the weight of what came before.